Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our third webinar series around employment, which is proudly hosted by the Cleft Lip and Palate Association and funded by the VTCT Foundation. The topic tonight is around preparing for your first day, and we will be joined by two of our volunteers, Stav and Amanda, and one of CLAPA's trustees, Emma, who will host the series this evening and who have a wealth of knowledge and experience around this topic. Please do ask questions throughout the webinar, as we will have time to answer them at the end. I'm now going to pass over to Stav.
Great. Hello, everybody. My name is Stav. I'm sure you've seen me before now in these webinars. I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, and now I am volunteering with CLAPA in my free time. So let's get started on the webinar. So firstly, congratulations on getting the job. We will be looking at preparation the day before your very first day at a new position. So as you can see on the screen, I have a few points that I'm going to talk through, particularly the best advice, which is prepare the night before. Don't leave anything to chance on the morning of your first day, and instead lay out or pack up everything you need the very night before. Once you do this, you will feel a lot calmer in terms of going forward for your very first day. Don't forget to create a checklist if necessary, just to make sure you have the main important things, such as a charger for your phone, your wallet, ID, or some commonalities that you would usually use, like hygiene products if possible, or even your lunch if you are thinking to take lunch with you on your first day. A little tip here would be to always ask if there's anything you can read beforehand. The answer is likely no, but it does show that you are looking forward to getting started and that you are curious about the position that you're about to start. If they do recommend something, then it's a great chance to get a jump start the day before your very first day and put you and your mind at ease. Being prepared the night before may also help you to get a better night's rest. A good night's sleep is always helpful before your first day at a new job, and that definitely helps going forward in meeting new people and creating positive energy into the first day. All right, I'm gonna hand you over to Amanda.
Thanks very much, Stav, and good evening, everyone. My name's Amanda. You may have seen me in previous webinars, but I volunteer for CLAPA, but I'm also a chartered psychologist and health researcher. So I just want to briefly talk about any cleft-related concerns that people may have when starting a new job. Certainly, I have in the past felt anxious, probably when I was younger, and I didn't really have any experience of the workplace either. So I guess I was just concerned that people might ask questions or there might be some staring. But on the whole, actually, I think because I've always quite quickly projected myself, and I hope I've been quite engaging, that I seem to be kind of quite lucky to kind of break down some barriers fairly early on. Stav, have you got any reflections on that?
Yeah, so for myself, my issue is my hearing. I actually don't have very great hearing going into my nearly 30s. I'm definitely noticing a deterioration, and I was always conscious of asking constantly, oh sorry, could you repeat that, or just to let you know I don't have the best hearing on my first day, just so that people know that, you know, I'm not ignoring them or not listening to them on my first day. I think that was always a worry for me, that, you know, people would maybe think that I'm not really paying attention on my first day when I am.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting. So you kind of preempted perhaps any questions or people perhaps thinking, oh, why isn't she listening? So you were able to raise that in quite a positive and assertive way.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of take ownership, and I do let people know pretty much beforehand, before they ask me, you know, or even would think that I'm not listening. You know, I do like to put that out there just so they do know for future reference.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. It sounds like a really good strategy. So yeah. Thank you, Stav. So I'm going to talk about why might people stare. So I think it can help to try to understand why people might stare, because it can make it easier to know how to react when someone does stare at you. Not everyone would have met someone with a cleft or any other distinguishing mark. And most of us, we are naturally curious when we see someone or something that's new. And I think people often look longer than usual without realizing that they're doing so, to try and make sense of what they are seeing. I should say the information I'm sharing at the moment and will do in this section is taken from the Changing Faces website. So please do look at their website for further information. So people might stare, they might do a double take, or they might turn away because they are surprised, uncomfortable, or unsure of how to act. And you know, most people are not being deliberately hurtful or intrusive. I'm sure there's times we can all think about that we might have been interested or look twice at someone's unusual appearance. So maybe keep that in mind if you see people staring at you. Although it can be helpful to remember that most people are not being unkind and they're not out to hurt our feelings, it can understandably still feel quite exhausting and upsetting if people do stare. So, you know, we are often all too familiar with people staring in curiosity or surprise. So it can be useful to have a bit of a plan for how we might react when someone does stare. And obviously the way we react is entirely up to you. And I know that on different days I can feel differently about if I'm stared at, how do I react to that? If I'm having a bad day, I might just carry on and not really engage with it, but other times I might be a little bit more reactive. So there are different tips that you might want to think about for handling staring in different situations. So help the person to become aware of their staring. So look back, smile, and hold the other person's gaze briefly. And this is the one I typically go for, and I've built my confidence to do that over time. So most people will smile back and then look away. Look back, smile, or nod to show them you have noticed, which may also break the ice. If someone is staring more persistently, you might want to look back and hold their gaze whilst raising your eyebrows to acknowledge that you've noticed their staring. If the staring still continues, you could frown to indicate that you are not happy. You could also say hello, and this lets them know that you have noticed them looking at you. You might want to offer a firm yet straightforward response, such as, I would prefer it if you did not stare at me. Another way of reacting with it, so my appearance seems to be bothering you, it does not bother me. So you're being confident, firm, and you are clearly labeling the person staring as the one with the problem. If you want to take a more confident and humorous approach, you could say, your admiring glances are beginning to embarrass me. Again, you could try a humorous approach. So we've clearly met before. You cannot seem to take your eyes off me. So there you're being humorous, but you're also making the point that their behavior is intrusive and inappropriate. You might decide not to respond at all. And that is absolutely fine. It doesn't mean that you're letting them get away with it. It is in your power to choose how you might respond. So you could simply move away because you don't feel comfortable. You could reassure yourself. So by saying to yourself, they're just curious, maybe they know someone who has the same condition. They might be too nervous to ask me a question. I know they are staring, but I'm going to choose to think about something else. I don't need to spend energy thinking about someone staring at me. Staring is rude, and I don't need to talk to someone who is being rude. I am more than my appearance. I am okay. I am unique. I have lots of positive qualities. Other things you could do, so you might want to prepare some responses in advance to handle staring. So you could try this exercise that I'm about to explain and write your answers down, or simply make a note on your device such as your smartphone. So you've just started a new job, and after a few days, you notice that the same colleague is staring at you. This is someone you are likely to come across many times, and you need to be able to meet them without embarrassment in the future. Think of what you would do and what you would say in each of the following scenarios. A simple response indicating that you would like them not to stare. A response indicating that the issue lies with them. A response that might provide a distraction or diversion. Now, develop the exercise. Imagine there is a person staring at you who you are unlikely to meet again. What could you say? If the person continues staring, how might you be more assertive? What if the person staring is someone you meet regularly? What could you say? So think of the different situations that you might come across and prepare your responses in advance. Many people find that one of the biggest challenges of looking different is unwanted attention. You are probably familiar with people commenting on or asking questions about your appearance. This may make you feel anxious, shy, embarrassed, or nervous when out in public or meeting new people, or perhaps you try to avoid these situations altogether. So again, try to have a plan on that. Sometimes people can be rude and unkind. In my experience, that is much fewer than those who perhaps don't realise that they're staring, for example. In general, however, when someone asks questions or comments, they're being thoughtless rather than malicious. So most people are curious and they don't mean to upset you, but they do forget to think about how you might be feeling in that situation. So dealing with other people's reactions day in, day out can absolutely be difficult, and it can be upsetting. You might feel judged, embarrassed, ashamed, awkward, anxious, panicky, angry, defensive, self-conscious, inconspicuous, lonely, isolated, sad, depressed, worried, scared, unconfident, and unsure. And we can feel a combination of those at different points as well. And unwanted attention can sometimes make us feel like we're permanently on show. So think about, again, how you might develop some techniques to help you handle comments. Now, if someone is being quite thoughtless, rude, or unkind, it can be really tempting to respond angrily. So whilst it's understandable, it is unlikely to help the situation, particularly if they are looking to provoke a reaction from you. So you might want to think about ways of disarming and diffusing the situation. So it's for you, that's making the other person aware that you have heard them being rude or unkind, but you're showing that you are strong and resilient as well. If the comment does seem to be a direct confrontation, though, it might just be best to walk away, particularly if you are feeling threatened or concerned. Walking away shows that you are in control. You're not going to bother to respond to their bad behaviour because they are simply not worth your time. If someone comments on your appearance, you can respond using body language. So again, the aim is to let the other person know that you are aware of the comment and that you don't like it. So you're giving the person a firm look for around 1 second and look away again. As I've said earlier, you can hold someone's gaze whilst raising your eyebrows. You can look and frown. You might feel assertive and safe enough to respond with a reply that maybe disarms them or makes them think about what they've been doing, and hopefully might stop them doing or behaving in a similar way in the future. So I don't think it's very nice to say things about someone's appearance. I doubt you would like it. I heard what you said about my appearance. I wanted you to know. It feels like the way I look is a problem for you, which is sad. I don't have a problem with my appearance. So again, think about ways of reassuring yourself, perhaps through self-talk. So this comment is their problem, not mine. I value people who are friendly and kind. By making these comments, this person has demonstrated they are not those things. So I don't need to place any value on what they think of me. I would never be unkind enough to say something like that to someone. This person obviously isn't worth me getting upset over. I am okay. I don't need to judge myself based on this person's unkind comment. There is more to me than how I look. the people who know me would never think or say those things about me. I've mentioned body language briefly, but again, think about the way you carry yourself. Really important. So carrying yourself with confidence can really help you feel more comfortable and encourage positive interactions with others. So examples of confident body language: maintaining eye contact with somebody, speaking in a confident tone, using your face and hands to express yourself, standing tall, and keeping your shoulders down. Understandably, people may feel less confident about confronting new challenges about any unnecessary behaviour, but it is important you know your rights, and no one should be made to feel uncomfortable in the workplace. And we will talk about bullying and harassment at the next webinar. So I'm now going to hand over to Emma, who will talk about tips for your first day.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Stav. Appreciate it. I guess a quick introduction. I'm Emma. I'm an HR trustee for CLAPA for the past few years. And in my professional life, I'm also an HR director for a technology organization. My connection to CLAPA was through my daughter being born with a cleft palate, and also my husband was also born with a cleft palate. So that's sort of my connection to it. I guess what I want to spend a bit of time talking about is really, what are those tips for your first day or your first, couple of weeks coming into a new role? I think it's true to say that for anyone starting in a new role or organization, it's always a really nervous time for anyone coming into that situation. There are a lot of unknowns that you are dealing with. What's the protocols? Who are the people? What are they going to think about me? There's just a lot of understandable anxiety that can exist for anyone. And so what I'm going to talk about is just some general strategies that you can really start to adopt to make sure that you are as prepared and as confident as you can be, understanding there will always still be nerves, but as prepared and confident as you can be. As Amanda talked about, it's so important to then think about that body language and keeping that eye contact and how you actually show up, whether virtually or in person, on your first day, in your new role. The first thing I would talk about is it's about preparation. Prepare. So, what can you do even before, don't wait for day one, which becomes a little bit of the HR tour. You get, introduced to people, you've got forms to fill in, things to think about, there will be a sort of, making sure you're set up with your IT equipment. Don't let that be a missed opportunity to really, position yourself, put yourself across in the way you want to. So think about what you can do to prepare in advance. So Amanda gave the really great example of, reach out in beforehand to HR or to your manager about, is there any reading that you can do before you start your role? The answer might be no. There might be reasons why, because of confidential information that they're not able to share, but it also shows really good intent that you're ready to get started, that you're excited, and that you're really curious as well. And curiosity is it's just amazing when you show that curiosity and you really show your new company that you're ready to get started and stuck in. It gives such a great first impression. But even if there's nothing you can read in advance, there's still research you can do on the company. You probably did a ton of research on the company before you started interviewing or whilst you were interviewing for the job. Go and take a look at it. Go and look at the notes you might have taken during the interview process. What did you write down from your different discussions you were having? Is there anything that you just want to remind yourself of that would be useful to, bring in to your first day? What about going and looking at Glassdoor? Glassdoor is if you've never used it before, it's a review site where it actually reviews, if your organization is on there, people can go in and review the organization. What are some of the things that people are writing about the place that you're going to go and join? Another tip might be going onto LinkedIn. So if you're a member of LinkedIn, then you can go and look at, who are some of the people and the roles that I'm actually going to be interacting with. Let me start to remember some of those names of people that already work in that organization. Take a note down of some of those names so that when you get introduced to those people, whether it's day one or during your first few weeks, you start to build the connections and understand, the structure of the organization. As I say, it's about, preparing you, helping you be as calm as possible, but also coming across with confidence when you really get there on day one. Come ready with questions. I think that's just, as an HR director, that's what I love. When I'm onboarding people, when I'm bringing in, I love for them to ask questions and, ask about, what's the company's goals? What's the company's values and vision? These are really great questions that you can already think about before you start on day one, things that you're really curious to learn, and ask those questions in those early onboarding sessions, whether it's virtual or in person, as I said. So again, I think that's a really important thing. Active listening is so important. When you are in sessions with people, they are taking their time out to introduce the company, introduce their roles, take time out to meet with you. Show active listening skills, engage with that person. As Amanda said, have eye contact with them when they're talking to you. Make sure that, you have simple things like have a pen and pad in front of you, ready to take notes down, because you're going to have so much information coming at you in those first sessions that it's really important to show that active listening, but you're also going to want to have the ability to refer back to that, as you go through the time. I would also say, speak to your manager, speak to different people in the organizations, people that you interact with, and start to get an understanding of the hierarchy, the landscape, who are the decision makers within the organization. Ask your manager, what does success look like for me in the first 30, 60, 90 days? Who should I be proactively reaching out to within this organization to make sure that I get the best start coming into this role? Again, just really simple questions, really easy things for you to prepare in advance and not have to sort of, it can be really hard in the moment on day one. You can panic, it happens to everyone, sort of in that moment, think about it. When you then go into those introductions with people, be proactive, go schedule time with them, even if it's not already been set up for you, maybe not on day one, but, a few days in, proactively go and reach out to some of those people. Be ready with a bit of an elevator pitch. How do you want to position yourself and introduce yourself into the organization, into those roles, into those with the people that you will be talking about? Talk a little bit about what brought you to the company, what brought you to the role. Give them a little bit of your history, but be quite future focused. Be quite like, the reason I'm here and I'm really excited to work with you. I'd love to think about how we can support each other or partner together, and just show that passion for why did you take that role and take that opportunity. I also think I wouldn't, look to speak to, this as an expert, but like, the elevator pitch can also be an opportunity to think about if you want to, address any of those personal things that Amanda talked about. So if you want to actually, tell that person, a little bit of history and share that about you, it can also mean that it puts you in control of that narrative. Again, that's completely a personal choice, but again, something like that, having a bit of prepared elevator pitch, as I said, that's just a few sentences, just how you sum up, you're talking about yourself, your values, and why you're excited to be in the company. I appreciate that's a lot of information I'm sharing. I think the things I would say is, be prepared, be curious, ask lots of questions, think about your body language. I think put yourself forward in a really positive way. Just, also remember that everyone is having their first day. Everyone is nervous. Everyone has been through that experience, and, you got the job. So congratulations on getting the job. Enjoy coming in and just putting yourself in the best possible position. Preparation can also be about things like, what do I need to wear on my first day? What's the style of the team? Just again, get all those things out in advance as much as possible. Perfect. I think back to you, Steph.
Thanks so much, Emma, for that information. Definitely helpful for a first day anywhere, at any position. And now I'm going to go and talk about a few don'ts when starting a new job. I have a top 10, so I'll go through a few of them as quickly as possible. Number one, really don't dress unprofessionally. You don't want to show up on your first day in just something like tracksuits and a t-shirt. You want to show that you are a competent person who is actively ready to be professional in the workplace and to really take up the position on the very first day. Don't show up late and don't show up too early. I would definitely suggest that turning up late is probably the worst thing you can do on your first day. However, I do know that things can come up, particularly traffic or, tube descriptions. You just never know what will come up on the day, but always plan ahead. Try and leave maybe an hour earlier than you usually would. If you do arrive to work a little bit early, take a look around the area, have a look at what is in the area of your new position and what maybe you might want to look at for lunch or just kind of take up some noticeability of where you are and what you could possibly even bring up as a conversation and topic of conversation at lunch at work. Now, equally, turning up too early, it could startle your employer. They could be in the middle of preparing things for you. They could be in the middle of getting things ready for your day, and you've turned up maybe half an hour early and they didn't expect it. So equally, that's also not so great. I would probably suggest getting to work on your first day maybe 10 minutes early if possible, just to let them know that you're there, and then that way they'll be expecting you at least around the 15-minute mark beforehand. Number 3, don't skip inductions. Now, I know that this can be tempting as you might find them a bit boring. However, there is a lot of opportunities here to network with your other co-workers and potentially form bonds that will serve you in your work going forward for the rest of your time at your new position. Plus, you never know, you might learn something new, which is definitely something that actually someone that we've hired this week has been doing, and I think I appreciate she's been asking lots of questions, which has been great, and also something helpful for me to tell you on our webinar today. Number 4, don't be afraid to ask for help or ignore offers of help. I would suggest asking for help, particularly on the first day, to show that you are interested in doing a great job and that you do want to move forward in the position with your head held high and that you have tried your best on your first day. Research shows that doing a favor for someone makes us feel more invested in them as a person. While you might be afraid to burden your co-workers or boss, studies show that the majority of people actually do enjoy helping others. It's beneficial for both parties, mainly because you won't be doing the job wrong, and that way the person who is employing you can show you through and navigate your role in this bit easier. Number 5, don't make excuses. Nobody likes hearing excuses on your first day, as though, particularly if you were late, oh, it wasn't me, it was the trains, or oh, it's my first day, I'm sorry, I'm not good at this. We want to come in with a positive attitude. We want to hear that you're excited and you're ready to move on with the role. Number 6, don't complain about your former or current boss or co-workers. This is quite an important one. I wouldn't go into the first day and get labeled as the work gossiper. You really don't want to have that label going through your career at your new position, particularly with people who you don't know are that trustworthy just yet. You don't know where your information may end up. So I think it's good to sometimes keep your cards a little bit close to your chest on the first day. And at the same time, though, you can obviously ask questions and see how others' personality is to gauge who you can trust and who you can't on your first day. Number 7. Don't turn down lunch invitations and be antisocial. Now, this is one that I always try to do when I have a new employee, or if there is someone new who does show up on the day. I always say, right, have you got lunch? Don't eat that today. You're coming out with us, because it'll be really nice to get to know the new employee. And also, if you do turn it down, it could maybe come across as antisocial. Don't forget, this is your first day. You're trying to make a great first impression on the rest of your colleagues. Equally, don't yawn or watch the clock, particularly on your first day. I know this can be really boring because you're learning so many things, and you're kind of navigating your way through whilst everybody else is getting on with their work. But at the same time, people are noticing. If you're looking at the clock, they can definitely see that. If you are yawning, they can definitely see that. So try, and I know it's difficult, but try to push through and to pass time. Maybe ask if there are some videos you can watch, or ask if even you can sit with a colleague who is doing something different to you to find out what that department is doing. There are many ways to be proactive at the workplace on your first day. Number 9, don't show off. I know that you want to show that you're confident and that you know the role. However, at the end of the day, this is your first day, and you do want to show that you are curious, as Emma has mentioned, and that you don't want to come off as cocky. I think that's definitely one to take note of, unless you're in sales. If you're in sales, then that apparently is a very different ballpark. Number 10, don't spend half of the day decorating your new space. Now, I know that as soon as you move into your new desk, you want to make that a home. That's going to be essentially your little hub to work in. However, obviously things have changed these days. We are doing hybrid. We are working from home as well as at the office. So sometimes maybe take a step back and actually think, I'll take my time with this, and then over coming weeks and months, you can make that space your own. Number 11, and finally, do not spend time on social media sites and on your phone on your very first day. This is also being watched. People are watching what you're doing. It may seem like everybody else is looking at their phone here and there throughout the day. However, on your first day, again, you are going to be a focus point of attention. They are going to be watching you to see what you're doing, if you are actually engaging in the work, or if you are more interested in your own personal life. So I think it would be good to not come off too unprofessional and maybe save the phone time for lunch. However, in saying this, if you are working in social media or in marketing, a lot of the time you will be using online platforms. So, you know, it depends on the role, really. If it's something very serious, then of course, please don't be on your phone. If you're at a call center, that's a very different job as well. So obviously this will differ depending on the jobs that are available to you. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm going to hand you over to Amanda, who will be able to let you know some good questions to ask on your first day.
Thank you, Stav. They're really great suggestions there. So yes, thinking about some good questions that you might want to ask on your first day. So you could simply ask, what should I focus on today? What are some of the biggest challenges facing the team right now? And I think asking those questions really early on means that you, your manager, and your new teammates are going to be on the same page from the get-go, which I think is really useful. You don't want to be the person who still doesn't know the names of their co-workers 2 weeks into the job. So it is fine to just keep asking people, what is your name? But obviously be polite and introduce yourself as well. So another question, who do I report to? And if that person is on leave or unavailable, who do I report to then? And so you're just figuring out the kind of chain of command, basically, and it can really prevent any difficult communication problems and won't mean that you inadvertently go over someone's head, for example. You can ask what the preferred method of communication is and how should you deliver updates. And typically you can kind of see from your co-workers on your first day how things are done. But obviously, you know, as we've been talking about, we have a lot of hybrid working, we have a lot of remote working now, so it may not be as obvious as perhaps it might have been. So it's absolutely fine just to ask your manager to address what should and shouldn't be sent in an email or said in person or at a staff meeting, for example. You could ask, how will I be reviewed? What is the format? So, for example, is there an appraisal? How often is that? Who carries that out? Just asking those things early on, so you'll feel much more comfortable when you walk into your first performance review if you know ahead of time how the process works. When is lunch? Always a useful question to ask, and just double checking where the loo facilities are. May seem obvious, but again, spare yourself the awkwardness of not knowing and just check out those questions. And that will really help to clarify what type of situations you should take into your own hands and when decisions are better left to other team members as well. You could ask, what are the dynamics of the team? So you absolutely can ask this, and what we hope for is that you might get a rundown of any friendships and rifts between co-workers to help you avoid getting into unnecessary drama. Experience suggests that those kinds of things take time to learn, and people aren't necessarily going to be really open about that on your first day, and certainly you might want to ask that privately of your manager and just see where you go. You might wish to ask if there are any unusual processes or procedures. In my experience, all workplaces have their own unique ways of doing things that they consider normal, they've been doing for years, but to the uninitiated, it can seem really quite bizarre. But so use that first day to ask what they might be. And finally, what is the policy on flexibility? So for some of us, managers are a real strict timekeeper, or they may be much more lenient on when work is actually done, as long as it gets done on time and is correct. And again, with remote working, I think in general, employers are much more flexible now. But again, it's really important to ask that question if you've not already been able to find that out before. So thank you, and I'm going to hand back to Emma, who will talk about relaxation techniques.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda. So, just to talk a little bit about relaxation techniques, as we've talked about, it's absolutely, normal and to be expected that, you can feel anxious in the run up to your first day, but also you might feel anxious, it might take a while to just settle into things as well. It can take a little bit of time to get into the rhythms of what's expected of you and, how things work around here. So, I think that's just something to keep in mind. We've talked a lot about the preparation that you can do going into the first day, but there's also various relaxation techniques that you can use to calm the mind and reduce muscle tension and the anxiety can cause. Obviously, important to remember, if you've got any medical conditions such as problems with your breathing, speak to your GP before trying any of these relaxation techniques. So then it goes to how often. I mean, I think, it's about setting aside, sort of time and a regular time to try some of these techniques, making sure you've got a good 20 or 30 minutes set aside. This could be in the morning when you first wake up, before you start your day, helping you get in, as in the right frame of mind, to prepare you for the day. But it also might be about if you feel you need to do this whilst at work as well. It can be about finding a quiet space when you're at work, somewhere discreet, somewhere you can, be comfortable. Not always as easy at work to obviously lie down, but get yourself sitting comfortably, and just find a quiet space as well. But really to just recognize that this is absolutely normal. There are lots of techniques and things that can help you. There is tons of things online to help you with, on YouTube or something like Headspace as an app to actually help you with a lot of these breathing techniques and relaxation things. But also I think there are some tips that we can cover now just to make sure that you are prepared. I mean, to control your breathing, I mean, I think the key is to think about is to place one hand on your chest and the other on your stomach. You want your stomach to move more than your chest as you breathe, and then take a slow, regular breath in through your nose if you can. Watch your hands as you breathe in, and the hand on your stomach should move and your chest should not. And breathe out slowly, and repeat this 10 times twice a day. And just mastering techniques like that can just really help center you when you start to feel anxious, and really good things to have. Again, we talked about strategies to have available to you, in the run up to the new role, or even just, while you are at work as well. There's also a lot of things around visualization exercises where you really help focusing your mind and creating in your mind an ideal spot to relax. That could be real, or it could be imaginary. It could be just taking yourself outside to get some fresh air and really, again, just be able to center yourself and do those exercises. As we've talked about, making sure that you're in a safe space, making sure that you're in a comfortable space where you really can get yourself into a relaxed position. That was everything from me.
Thanks, Emma. That was really helpful. Some really useful relaxation techniques there. So we're just going to move on to some questions that we've been sent through. I think these last two are more sort of advice, really. So one thing that somebody sent through is, I feel that I'm being judged, and I feel nervous when being asked questions in case I come across with a lisp. Has anybody got any sort of advice for this person at all?
I would probably say not to overthink a lot of people's reactions. I think sometimes we, as a society, especially women anyway, we tend to overthink what somebody else has said to us. At the same time, when you're feeling like you are being judged, you can remove yourself from that situation. You don't have to be there. It's also important to know that you can remove yourself from that situation if someone is being judgmental to you at work, especially that you have a reliable HR team, if possible, that you can speak to, especially on your first day, just to make yourself feel a bit more comfortable.
Amanda, Emma, anything you want to add there?
I just echo what Steph really said, really, don't overthink it. And actually, certainly if you are concerned about speech, I used to really worry when I said my cheers and things like that. But the more I just got stuck in, the less of an issue it became. You just kind of go with it. And most people are just more than fine. And, you just work together and you build good relationships, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. I would echo all that.
Thank you. The next question is, so how do I make new friends and bond with new colleagues? And do I bring up my cleft?
I would say, honestly, lunch is the best time to make new friends and to bond. Like I said, we actually took a new colleague out this week to a wonderful sushi place near me at work, which is half price in lunchtime, and just kind of letting her know on all of the little treats around the area, particularly for lunch. And it's a great place really for you to kind of let your guard down, and also your colleagues kind of relax for an hour outside of the office. So yeah, I would probably say lunch is the best time to ask questions, and if you want to bring up your cleft, that's up to you. You don't have to. Depends really on how confident you are about it, and if you actually don't mind bringing it up in a conversation.
Yeah, I would support that with lunch. Also, if you go into the kitchen to make a cup of tea, introduce yourself when you walk in. You might be walking into a room, where there's people in there already, and just, with confidence, you know, morning, how are you? Nice to meet you. I'm so and so, just little simple things like that. So, you know, just, you know, you're making yourself approachable to people as well.
Thank you. And I think, Stav, you briefly touched on this at the beginning, but one of the questions is, what if I sound rude if I ask people to repeat themselves due to my hearing loss? Yeah,
often if I mean, that was probably a worry for me when I started going into the working space. But a lot of the time you will find that people will just repeat themselves. They won't think that you're rude, especially if you do follow up with apologies, I do have a hearing issue at the moment. They usually don't really come back with a rude comment unless, you know, you've done it more than once and you haven't explained yourself. Annoyingly, we shouldn't have to feel like we do have to explain ourselves, but I think it's always good just to kind of let people know, and then that way the curiosity is kind of like stamped out there and then.
Great, thank you. And I think just the last question. So what should I wear on my first day if the company says that they are like casual? What does casual mean?
It's the worst, isn't it, when companies say casual, but what does that actually mean? Look, I think you have to think about, you know, what's true to you and your personal style and what's going to make you feel the best version of yourself, the most comfortable version of yourself. So even if it says casual, if you think that, you know, there's going to be a risk that you go a little bit too casual on day one and you'd rather, you know, not risk that, then it's fine. I think everyone understands that people are going to be just that little bit smarter probably, but also just making sure, you know, the clothes are clean, the clothes are neat, the clothes are obviously appropriate. You know, I think for a work environment is obviously going to be really important, but I do think it's important that you feel confident and that you're putting your sort of best version of yourself forward on your first day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my company said that to me when we first started, and I remember looking around just after my interview, really just to see what people were wearing on my way out, and most of them were in jeans and a jumper or a casual top. Just yeah, like Emma really echoed, really was just make sure it's appropriate depending on the role, and you can't really go wrong with jeans and a blazer, you know, so it's kind of like half formal, half casual for the first day.
Thank you, guys. That was really helpful. So I think obviously a lot of people are still working from home. So I think, you know, pajamas on the bottom and maybe a nice top. You could perhaps get away with that. Yeah. So that's the end of the webinar. So thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you found this series useful. Please do join us on the 12th of January for our final webinar, where we'll be discussing rights at work and bullying and harassment as well. So a really interesting topic. So please do join us for that if you can. Our upcoming events for adults are our Christmas social, which is next Wednesday, the 8th, and that starts at 6:30. And it's going to be a night of mystery and problem solving with a chance to chat to other adults born with a cleft. We also have our CLAPA Cafe, which is taking place on Saturday the 15th, and this is aimed at adults aged 18 to 25, and the discussions will be around self-esteem and confidence. Please do visit our website and social media pages for the registration details for both of these events. I'd also just like to say a huge thank you to Stav, Amanda and Emma for hosting this webinar. It really has been lovely to hear your own experiences and has given us an insight into how to prepare for our first day. And we look forward to the next one. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we hope you have a lovely Christmas.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.